Amitofo. Good morning and welcome to Jianhu Shifu's Dharma Talk. Life is a succession of lessons. And in the last few years, we've encountered an unprecedented pandemic and other difficulties. Jianhu Shifu has received many requests to show how Buddha's teaching can guide us in these challenging times. It is such a blessing that Shifu is here today to answer our questions. During this talk, you are welcome to have your video turned on or off. It is your discretion. Since there are a large number of participants, please have your microphone muted for the duration of Shifu's talk. For questions and answers, Shifu will be focusing on questions that were previously posted on the Line app. The last 15 minutes will be for Shifu to answer any questions that will be posted to the Dory app during today's talk. A link to the Dory app was posted in the Zoom invite for today's talk. It is also posted in the Zoom's meetings chat. If you have any questions today, please post them only to the Dory app. Jianhu Shifu emigrated from Taiwan to America as a teenager. He earned his bachelor degree at Caltech and his doctorate degree in artificial neural networks from UC San Diego. In 1994, he was ordained at Chung Tai Chan Monastery by the Grand Master Venerable Wei Chua in Taiwan. He was appointed to the Dean of Chung Tai Buddhist Institute, and starting in 2000, Jianhu Shifu came here to the West Coast and established several Zen centers, including Buddha Gate Monastery in the East Bay, the Zen Center of Sunnyvale in Silicon Valley, and Buddha Jewel Monastery in Seattle. He was also their first abbot. Now let's welcome Jianhu Shifu.
Okay, thank you, Greg. It's really good to meet all of you here online to have a Dharma talk. It's been almost 3 years since Shifu last taught in a Zen center setting. And I'm glad to see some old friends here. Hope to gather more old friends and new friends in the future. Now, today's session will be mostly answering the questions that we have collected primarily from the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area group in the last week. The Shifu have organized these questions, so we'll answer them in sequence. And like Greg said, we'll open the last 15 minutes for new questions that's posted from the link you have received. It's a Dory app on the browser that you can post your questions, and you can also push that thumbs up button if you like a question. So Shifu will more likely answer questions that people like more. Okay. So before we begin, let us start with the sutra opening gatha. Everybody, please put your palms together. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million kalpas. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning. Okay, so that put us in the proper mindset that we cherish this moment of gathering together, and we are grateful for the wisdom of the Buddha. Okay, first question. The practice of Buddhism brings harmony to each individual and society. What is Shifu's plan to help propagate Buddhism in the future? Well, there's also an online question about, well, would you be having a continuing role with Zhongtai Chan Monastery, and so in what capacity? So first thing Shifu will need to announce is that Recently, about a couple months ago, Shifu have decided to leave the monastery which I was ordained at, Zhongtai Chan Monastery, for personal cultivation reasons. I feel like since the Grand Master has passed on a few years ago, I need to take hold of my practice when I want to do solitary practice, when I want to teach the Dharma, how much I want to meditate. I want to take that into my own hands. I need to carve out my own path. Also, there are certain Dharma teaching ideas I want to try on. That will be possible only when I am on my own. So is a serious decision I've contemplated for a few years. I will be forever grateful to the Grandmaster Weijie for his teaching, and I hope to follow the spirit of his Bodhisattva vows in my continuing teaching. And I'm also very, very grateful to Zhongtai Chan Monastery for the past 20 plus years that have helped me grow in my cultivation and given me many opportunities. For now, I need to take my own path for a few years. If the conditions change in the future, I may go back to Zhongtai, and I would very much love to help contribute to Zhongtai if possible. So the answer is, for now, I am not playing a role in my Dharma activities. My does not represent that of Zhongtai. Okay, and I encourage those of you who have gotten to know Shifu through Zhongtai Chan Monastery to continue to support and take classes at Zhongtai Zen centers around the world. Okay. All right. So, what are my future plans? Well, Shifu is not as of now. Shifu is not considering of setting up my own monastery, physical monastery, yet. So I'm planning on a virtual monastery, meaning that I will be primarily doing online teaching. In terms of online teaching, this is actually the first one. In English, we have just started we had just done a Chinese session yesterday, similarly a Q&A session. But in the future, Shifu will be offering online classes on particular sutras that are, I think that's really important. That will most likely happen before the end of this year. But before that, Shifu will likely offer at least a couple of online Dharma talks on specific topics, like understanding the mind. This topic would be suitable for people who have studied Buddhism for a while, or people who have no background in Buddhism. That will be a good chance for you to invite your friends, anybody who may be interested. Another topic would be on how to analyze and understand the emptiness of the self, which is crucial for liberation. That's a slightly more involved topic. So I'll be offering a series of special topic lectures online. Okay. Also, a session like this, answering Dharma questions, will happen when we have gathered enough questions from those of you. Okay. And I hoped in these online sessions, there is some form of two-way interaction. Probably not too much today because we have many questions that I need to answer, but in the future classes and so on, we'll figure out a way to have feedback from all of you and a way for Shifu to understand how much you comprehend, what kind of questions you have regarding the Dharma talks. I will be also offering more specific instructions on different kinds of meditation methods Okay. Also, local visits will be possible. For example, meditation workshops and retreats, lectures, and short courses. These will primarily be done through invitation. For example, Shifu is invited to give a series of talks, as well as conduct a 5-day meditation retreat in Berlin, Germany, in September. In October, Shifu will be in Bay Area, so it is possible to arrange for small group Dharma chats during that time. And in November, Shifu will be in Taiwan, and so we'll most likely do some teaching and small group Dharma chats in Taiwan. Okay, so Shifu's schedule is pretty much filled for the rest of this year, and next year is open. So if there's local interest, like a group of people would like to invite Shifu to give some talks or do some retreat, that can be arranged. Okay, and also Shifu will do my best to make teaching materials available, like recorded lectures, videos, audio, and text material. Okay, in the future, when we're just starting, so we have a lot of things to set up. Like we don't have a website yet, but it's in progress. Okay, and we also have formed a Dharma, Prajna Dharma organization, and waiting for the IRS to grant us the nonprofit status, which will make your contributions tax deductible, and that will happen hopefully within the next few months. Okay, all right. So let us now move on to the first question. So this group of questions are all about dealing with anger and difficult people, which we all encounter in our lives. How to control emotions, especially anger. How to deal with people that are filled with negative energy. How do you stay calm when you have to constantly be in the company of someone who's complaining? I've tried practicing compassion and tolerance paramita over and over, and sometimes I discover a volcano building up inside that causes a flare up later, adding to the dismay. So these are very real questions that we encounter, right? So in Buddhism, compassion is the medicine for anger. However, we want to properly understand what compassion is made of. So let me begin with the story. One of my favorite stories, which many of you must have heard before. There's such a great lessons to be learned from that story, and that's the gift story, which is one day a person who Buddha has never met came to see the Buddha and started shouting at him with a lot of nasty words and untruthful words too. Basically, he was jealous of the Buddha as a great, accomplished spiritual teacher. And he was saying that Buddha is a fake and he's lying and cheating and so on and so on. So how does Buddha react? He just sit there in silence, listening, taking every word, but not responding at all. Not responding at all. And you know that it takes two people to start an argument. So after a few minutes, the person became silent. And that's when the Buddha asked him. Buddha said, "Sir, may I ask you a question? If you were to bring a gift and give it to someone, but the person refuses the gift, what do you do with the gift?" Of course, that person was surprised and distracted, but it's a simple question. So he answered, "Of course, I take the gift back myself." Buddha says, "Exactly. I totally agree with you. So the gift you have just given me, I do not accept it. You have to take it back yourself." So you know what the gift that Buddha is referring to is all the words you have showered on me, all the nasty words you have said to me. right? So let us look at this story in terms of what I want to talk about, which is the ingredients of compassion. So I listed 3 things here: acceptance, understanding, and empathy. So acceptance means that accept the situation as it is. Accept that person's behavior. Accept that person as he or she is. That's the way he is. Why is this important? Because often we get upset because we say, why are you acting this way? Why do you say these things to me? Why aren't you like the other person? So that means we are not accepting, we are in a kind of a denial of the situation. I only wish that this is not happening. I wish that you would not do this to me. That is a denial. So we must begin with acceptance of the reality of the situation, that the person is the way they are right now. We gotta accept it. So when the guy came to shout at the Buddha, what did the Buddha do? He didn't say, why are you doing this to me? I didn't do any of the things he just said, right? No, Buddha simply accepted it and taking every word he said. That's the way he is. That's the way he is right now at this moment. And I'm not trying to change you. I'm just trying to observe you. And once I accept you as you are, no matter how badly I think you behave, then I can have the mental capacity to try to understand you, to try to understand the situation, to try to find a solution or some ways to improve the situation. So understanding is next. I want to understand you. And that means, where do you come from? That means we try to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, right? So when we look at the other person and that person's behavior is not that rational, that understandable to me, let us try to understand where he comes from. That means we think about dependent arising, the interdependence of things, the cause and condition of any situation. Why is he like that? I'm not trying to change you. I'm trying to understand, try to feel where you come from. Maybe it's the way you were raised, the way you grew up, the childhood environment, how your parents raised you, the kind of friends and social circles you had, the kind of events that happened to you that I didn't know about, the kind of things in your life that shaped who you are. I may not understand all of that, but then I can try to give you the benefit of the doubt. I can try to understand the multitude of causal conditions that make you the way you are. Just like I am the way I am now because of many causal conditions. Many people influence me, right? And that make me who I am today or behave this way. And if I look at 10 years in the past of myself, if I look at myself 10 years in the past, I may not like myself that much. Oh, there's so many things I would have liked to change. But 10 years ago, that was who I was. And I couldn't do much to change it at that moment, right? And in the same way, that person behaves the way that he does, there's not much that he could do to change that. Maybe if that person got to learn about Buddhism, he could proceed to improve himself in the next 5 to 10 years, but not now. We got to accept them as they are and try to understand where they're coming from, how they could have become this way, how the situation have developed into this situation with understanding. And that's when we can go to the next, empathy. Empathy means, okay, now I feel for you. I feel for your anger. I may not understand the full cause for your anger, or your behavior, but let me try to feel that you're unhappy. You're unhappy with me, right? So I try to put myself in that position. There are times when I was unhappy with somebody, and I wish that person would understand me better. Maybe I can be that person who understands you better. So we can summarize that into one phrase: what can I do for you? These are the main ingredients of compassion, Buddhist compassion. Accept the situation, accept the person as they are, and don't deny that person. Don't tell them, why don't you be like the other kid? Why aren't you like the other husband? Why, no, just accept them as they are. That doesn't mean you agree with their behavior, but just accept the situation. And then we try to understand where they come from, why they are this way. And then we can have feeling, we can feel for the other person's, how they are being upset. And let me then think about what I can do to make this situation slightly better. That is how we practice compassion. Okay, so then the question says, I try to be compassionate, I try to practice tolerance, but then sometimes I get bottled, my emotion gets bottled up and then flares up like a volcano. That means I'm suppressing myself. I'm suppressing myself inside. That means I'm not actually practicing compassion in the above way. That means I'm forcing myself to accept something I don't want to accept, which is quite normal. It's very normal. Everybody does that. It's not easy to practice what Shifu had just said, but it's very crucial, very useful. And in the long run, it will be very beneficial to ourselves to actually practice this way. So let me give you another example. This is an example of, go back up, not yet. The example of the policewoman, who is happened in the Bay Area, one of our disciples from years ago. She attended our classes the evening before, and the next day at work, they have a weekly meeting with the other people on their task force. So police force, they are under a lot of stress. There's danger every day, right? When they have meetings, often it is quite fiery. And especially there's one particular policeman who seems to always be against this policewoman. So whatever she says in the meeting, he will come up with something contrary. So every time they have this weekly meeting, is always unhappy ending. Okay. However, she remembered the lesson from the night before, and then she started practicing this compassion, acceptance, accepting the way he is, and then try to understand where he's coming from. And then she did something crucial, that is to try to identify something that he says that I can agree with. Instead of focusing on the 80% of the thing that he tried to contradict me, I focus on the other 10 or 20% that he said that I actually can't agree. So I'm not lying. I'm saying the truth. But I focus on the things that I can agree with you. When that happens, when you start by saying, oh, that what you said there, I think that's a good idea. You know what happens? Even though that person is angry and upset at you, when you say that, immediately the guard is down. You're not on the opposite side anymore. You're on the same side. And then that would be a good point to start. And starting with things you can agree with, asking them about details about that. And then after a while, then you talk about things that you disagree with little by little. And so in the end, the meeting turned out really well. And then several of her colleagues congratulated her and said, wow, you were amazing today. So that's how she dealt with a very difficult colleague, applying the Buddhist practice of compassion, understanding, empathy. Yeah. So let's look at them again. Acceptance. accept them as they are. And one of the things that we find it difficult to accept situation as they are is because we have unrealistic expectations. So we talked about this before in classes as well. When you go to a store and you got very bad service from this employee, and you get upset. Hey, these employees, they're supposed to know what they're talking about, supposed to serve the customers really well. Well, that's an expectation. That is not something you can demand. And that is not the reality. The reality may be, if you try to understand where they're coming from, is that maybe they're getting minimum wage. Maybe they have a hard time dealing, making the ends meet. Maybe they just on the job for the first week. Maybe they had a fight with their spouse the night before. Maybe life is just not going so great for them, right? So why do we expect everybody to behave perfectly when ourselves don't? So acceptance means also no unrealistic expectations. All right. Understanding, observe the situation, try to find improvement with the purpose of trying to find improvement to the situation, not trying to get back at that person. That is not the practice of compassion. It's natural for us to want to get back at a person. You say this mean thing to me, I will, find a way to hurt you too, right? That doesn't work. That's not compassion. So even though they may have said things that hurt me or done things that hurt me, I try to find a way to deal with the situation so that it actually benefits me and the other person. That is the Buddhist way. Yeah, that is a combination of understanding and empathy. Yeah, so don't get trapped in our emotional reaction. If you are feeling very emotional because of something somebody did, please remain calm and maybe stay away from the situation for now until you can calm down, right? And then you can think more clearly and reflect on the situation, right? And it's important to aim in your reaction is to aim to benefit both sides, to improve, to turn around the negative karma relationship you have with the other person, not to make that person suffer just like I have suffered. When you think this way, you will find that you don't suffer as much. And then you can actually turn an enemy into a friend. Okay, let me give you one more example. It's another real example. One of our disciples is a landlord. So she rents houses to tenants. And one day, the new tenant moved in. And then at the end of the day, the mother, the new tenant's mother with 4 little kids, she sent a very angry message to the landlord. Say, the house is so dirty, it's incredible. She posted several pictures of her kids' feet being totally black. And then, things that is a mess and so on. So, and she's making some unreasonable, very obviously very emotional things that she said. So, of course, our landlord, disciple, she was upset or she was emotional, but then she decided to sleep on it. And the next morning, she reflected on the Buddha's teaching and then took a long time, like a couple of hours, to send a very careful reply to the new tenant. And it began by saying, I understand that moving into a new house is very stressful, especially you're a mother with 4 little kids running around. Oh, I'm a mother myself. I can imagine how difficult it is. I'm sorry that the condition was not up to your expectation. We do clean the house to a certain standard, to my standard, and we do not mean to, this and that. But however, if you, I hope to resolve all your issues. If you would like, I will hire another professional deep cleaning to do it again. And if there are if you decide not to take this house, we can ignore the contract and, no penalties. And, you can move on and so on. So she was very understanding and try to feel for her stress and so on. And then later in the day, the tenant wrote a very, very nice letter and decided to stay in the house. So that's another real example how you apply compassion in a real life situation. So think about this. Now, let me move on to the stages of tolerance. So we have the 6 paramitas or 6 perfections of the Bodhisattva practice. And one of them is the tolerance paramita, or the perfection of tolerance. Now, the word tolerance in Sanskrit is ksanti. Ksanti has, it doesn't correspond to exactly one English word. So tolerance is part of it. Forbearance, patience, forgiveness are all part of the meaning of the word ksanti. So there are stages of ksanti, or the perfection of ksanti. The first is tolerance by restraint. We have talked about this in the level 2 Zen classes in the Zen Center. Tolerance by restraint, that means, okay, I know I should practice compassion and tolerance, but it's difficult, understandably. But I'm also trying to learn the idea about compassion, how to practice it. But it's not gonna be easy. The first 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, I would need to still restrain my emotions and so on. So that's okay. That's the first part of it. But there's an important thing here. I'm not suppressing my displeasure. I'm trying to figure out where my displeasure comes from, like Shifu said, unrealistic expectations. Try to understand where the other person comes from. This is how you dissipate those displeasure. Dissipate that emotion, not to bottle it up. Okay, so you got to have the proper understanding of the Buddhist practice. And so the second stage is called tolerance by understanding. Now you understand this teaching and you have faith in it. So you try to contemplate on this more and more and more, and it makes more sense to you. You see that, oh, now I have a different way of dealing with these difficult people. And when you become really good at this, when you practice this many times, it becomes second nature to you. It's called, then you reach the stage of spontaneous tolerance, which means your ego self is tamed. It doesn't flare up and say, you can't say that to me. But rather, I'm thinking about how the other person is. How can I improve both of our situations in a calm and clear manner? Right? And with practice, you become good at this. You don't even get upset anymore. You don't even feel the need to tolerate because the ego self is tamed. And finally, there's a couple of stages which bring us to perfection of tolerance, which is when the ego self is destroyed. Okay, so I won't go into details about this. And finally, regarding this issue, let me just bring up the lecture notes that we had for tolerance paramita. Previously, I given out in class. These are some of the methods, suggested methods you can use to practice tolerance. One, accepting adversity. Challenges are not bad, they could be good for you. Seeing the other's point of view, we've talked about. Critics as teachers. People who criticize me actually have a lot to teach about myself, right? They can see things I don't see. They can see my shortcomings that I don't see myself. Bodhisattva intention, I want to benefit all. Even though you are mean to me, how can I benefit you? What can I do for you? Doctor-patient relationship. When a kid needs to get a flu shot and goes to the doctor's office, the kid is angry, he yells at the doctor, he maybe even kicked the doctor. The doctor doesn't get mad. He just gives the kid what he needs to benefit the kid. In the same way, if we are mature in the Dharma, then we are like a doctor of the mind. We can look at others behavior and say, how can I be a doctor? How can I spread some of the Dharma to you? And that's what the Buddha did in our gift story. At the end of the gift story, Buddha said, I do not accept your gift. Just like a shadow following a person and echo follows the sound, your karma consequences follow you. So Buddha was actually trying to teach this person who came to challenge the Buddha. He was not trying, Buddha was trying to find a way to give the person a teaching even though he doesn't want it. So Buddha gave the teaching by having the person himself saying the teaching. That's called skillful means. You bring a gift to someone, and that someone doesn't want the gift, you have to take it back. You do something, that something comes back to you. What goes around comes around. You said it yourself. I didn't say it. I agree with you. I'm just agreeing with you. That's Buddha's skillful means to benefit that person. Okay? So I'm not going, obviously you can give a lot of examples and details about each of these methods, but maybe another time. Let's move on to the next question. So these are a set of questions about karma, killing, thrifty. If I accidentally hurt a bug, like a mosquito, and I heard it's not going to survive, with a no killing precept, no killing, no stealing, right? It is better to leave it suffering or kill it in that case. If I'm cooking non-vegetarian meal, so I'm assuming that this person is vegetarian, but I need to cook a non-vegetarian meal to my family, and there's leftovers that's has meat, that would go bad. Is it better to put it in compost or to eat it? Okay, I feel wrong doing either way, so what's the better? Bad. Okay, so in Buddhism, we do not feel that we have the right to take away a sentient being's life. Okay, so in the case, even though I accidentally hurt the mosquito, it's obviously it's gonna die. We don't just put it out there as misery. I can repent for my careless behavior. Oh, I didn't want to kill you. Next time I try to be more mindful, and I will dedicate marriage to you. Hopefully you will be reborn as a human being to practice the Dharma in the next life. Okay, so we can dedicate marriage to give it some good karma, but we don't take the action of actually killing that living being. So in the situation of a person who is dying, or the dog is run over hit by a vehicle and is dying, let it be. And even though conventional wisdom may say, oh, we need to put it out of misery, that's not practiced in Buddhism. However, if a person or your pet is unable to stay alive without artificial means, then may be okay to terminate the treatment, to end the treatment and let the person die naturally. Okay. If you're in a situation where you need to take care of pets or animals, for example, and it's part of your job that you need to put certain pet animals to death, either you are able to get out of that task, change job, or because you are required, and it's not of your own will, you can chant the Buddha's name, you can dedicate the merits of your practice to that living being. Okay. As to leftover food, put it into compost is okay. If you're vegetarian and you wish not to eat the meat dishes, you could put it in a compost. In fact, it's commonly done in Buddhist time when they don't have, monasteries don't have kitchens, they don't keep food overnight. So whatever they collected from alms round and they cannot finish, they just spread it into nature so that the other sentient beings can partake in that. So that's totally okay. So there are many situations in real life where you have to make a choice and seems to create some sort of bad karma either way. So just do your best to choose the lesser of the bad karma, and your intention is pure, right? But this is unavoidable often. All right, let's move on to the next one. How to introduce Buddhism to our kids? That is an important question. I think it's really important that we expose kids to many of the Buddhist concepts when they are young, to give them the proper view of life. Buddha himself is very good at telling stories. So you can find many stories in Buddhist scriptures. You can collect some of these stories, or maybe they are collections already, and you can study the stories and tell them as stories to the kids. There's for example, a sutra it's a Buddhist scripture, a sutra called 100 Parables. So Buddha gave 100 very short stories that have a moral teaching, that have an important teaching. You need to understand the parables properly in order to tell it and enlighten others. Okay. For example, let me tell you one of those stories. It's just, I want the third floor. So there was a rich guy in the village. He was walking one day and he saw a 3-story mansion being built. He hasn't seen that before. The mansion is almost completed. The first floor, the second floor is completed, and they are working on the third floor. So the rich guy, he walked up the building and saw, wow, the view from the third floor is really good. So when he got home, his servant discovered who is building that house, and he called the builder over. And he said, did you build that house? Yeah, I did. I am building that house. So I want one like that. The builder said, no problem. Give me a piece of land. And so the rich guy gave him a piece of land, allotted a piece of land, and said, however, I want a third floor just like that one. Okay, so 2 weeks later, he went to see his lot, and he saw that the builder is digging a big hole on the ground, and then he's upset. I want the third floor. Why are you building downward, right? Of course, we all know he needs to build a foundation, but the rich guy didn't understand it. So he told the builder, give me my third floor quickly. And then another 2 weeks later, they finished the foundation, they finished the first floor, they're starting on the second floor. And the rich guy saw this, he was upset. He said, why are you wasting your time building the first and the second floor? I just want the third floor. I don't want the first and second floor. So that's the end of the parable. Now, of course, it's a funny story. Any kid can understand you cannot have a third floor without this first and second floor. How can anybody be that stupid? But in fact, in reality, many of us behave like that. For example, when the kid goofs around, doesn't want to do homework in elementary school, right? That's the first floor. And he goes around in the middle school and high school, and that's the second floor. And then he wants to go to college or have a good job and make a lot of money. That's the third floor. How can you have the third floor without the first and the second floor, right? So this can be applied to a lot of situations. Another very short parable is poking yourself with an arrow. Somebody is shot by an arrow, and it hurts, of course. And so this guy pulled out the arrow from his body and then used the same arrow to poke himself 99 more times. End of story. Of course, you can ask, is anybody in the world that stupid? Well, be careful. Many of us have done the same thing. What is that? What is that? Somebody does something to hurt you once. Every time you think about it, you use the same arrow to poke yourself. Every time you think about it, you get upset. Every time you think about it, you get upset. You get upset 99 more times. You never let go. That is like using the first arrow. He only shut you once, but you use the same arrow, probably yourself 99 times. So these are beautiful stories. You can tell a kid, you can tell an adult, you can tell a professor in college, you can tell a political leader, you can tell anybody, and they would benefit from the lesson, right? The gift story already told. So there are many stories. That's one good way. Another thing I would recommend is whatever you have learned from the Buddhist teaching, any idea, any concept, any teaching, try practice explaining the Dharma in your own words to somebody, even if it's imaginary. Imagine you want to explain how to practice compassion properly to a friend, to your kid, to your parent, to a coworker. How would you explain the same idea that Shifu just did? You need to practice. In your mind, you need to have the whole idea very consistent, coherent, and clear in your mind in order to express it clearly. And you want to practice a few times until you can express it clearly, so that it's easy for the other person to understand, interesting for that person to hear. That takes a lot of practice. And when you can do this well, you can explain the Dharma to kids or adults better. Yeah. Another thing Shifu recommends is that whatever you learn, try to find at least three examples to illustrate that teaching. So Shifu gave you three examples: the gift story, the policewoman story, and the 10 and letter story. These three stories actually illustrate. When Shifu learned about this compassion teaching, I think about, okay, what kind of stories can I find in real life so I can illustrate the principles? So Shifu did that. I always try to do that. You try to do that yourself. You try to come up with 3 different examples, 5 or 10 different examples in your life, from your experience, from what you see, and then you'll be very convincing, right? And that will help you understand the principle deeper. And then you can explain to others, whether they're a kid or not. And when you explain to kids, you want to use simple words. Now, any profound idea, actually, you can explain with simple words. That is a challenge, but it can be done. Kids are amazing in grasping some essence of what you're trying to say if you say it in a good way. Okay. All right, next topic. Okay, this is a controversial one. The overturn of Roe versus Wade has been shaking the abortion legal system. What is your perspective on this matter? Let me first warn that whether you are pro-choice or pro-life, what Shifu says may not please you 100%. Okay. First of all, let us put it into context. We are in America right now, but our audience listening or watching this session may not be from America. They could be from all different countries. Some may be from China, some may be from Europe, some may be from South, from Asia or Middle East. They are complicated cultural and religious landscape in different countries. We need to take that into consideration and not to think that whatever I think or we think or our country think is the standard and that's the right way. That is more complicated than that. Okay. And now go back to the question. What does Shifu think about this abortion? Should it be legal or not? Buddhism tried to teach the karma consequences of things in our life. Karma consequences. Because Buddha wants to help you avoid suffering, avoid hurting. In order to avoid suffering, you need to understand the causes of suffering. That's the Four Noble Truths. All right. So whatever issue we have at hand, let us study the karma, the cause and effect, the karma consequences. So regarding abortion, first of all, you must have sexual relationship first, right? So in Buddhism, we take sexual relationships very seriously. In fact, many countries, traditionally take this very seriously. Perhaps in the 60s or 70s in America, the so-called sexual liberation and start looking at sexual relationship as something, it's okay to do it just for fun. If I enjoy, you enjoy, what's wrong with it? No, it's not that simple, because there are heavy karma consequences. For example, is probably the most intimate physical relationship you can have with another person. And that involves commitment, responsibility. Also, you could bring another life into this world. Now, that is a very serious thing, to bring another child into this world. So sexual relationship is not like shopping, having a good meal, or going to have some fun. It has serious karma consequences that you want to consider. Okay? Consider the consequences, consider the responsibility. And another aspect we need to consider is the fetus. When the person is pregnant, does the fetus have consciousness? Does the fetus experience pain? Because Buddhism is involved in getting rid of suffering for all sentient beings. So if the fetus feels pain, then let's try not to do it. So according to Buddhist teaching, it is possible, it's likely, very likely, that at the moment of conception, that fetus has the seed of consciousness. Of course, that consciousness may be quite dormant, and later on in the womb may begin to develop. Certainly the fetus will feel cold and heat and shaking like earthquake, and whatever the food that the mother takes will be transported to the fetus. If the mother is sick, the fetus is not gonna feel comfortable, right? So the fetus does have feelings and sensations. You need to consider that. And also, how does it affect the mother? Does abortion affect the mother? There are medical testament that many mothers who have abortion experience long-term negative effects to their health or mental health. You can try to look it up yourself. So a person who is thinking about abortion should do your best to consider all the possible consequences regarding yourself, your own health, your own well-being, regarding another life that you're carrying, regarding all these things. Will you understand the karma consequences as well as you can? However, Buddhism does not tell you what to do. So one decides for oneself what to do. So this is in contrast to perhaps other religions where, okay, here's the 10 commandments. God tell you to do this, you should follow it. If you're a good Christian, you should follow the 10 commandments. It's an order, it's a commandment. Buddha does not give commitments. Buddha give guidelines. Buddha give precepts for those who want to take it. So the 5 precepts, if you want to create good karma and avoid bad karma, you should take the 5 precepts. But you decide for yourself where you want to take this. And you decide for yourself where you want to give it up, if you ever want to give it up. The decision is up to you. So having explained the karma consequences, one must decide for oneself because it's your own karma. Okay, so let's hope that the pregnant mother makes informed decisions considering the cause and effect, and also considers even if there's very terrible situation where the mother is forced or raped, is there a solution that benefits both the mother and the child? So in Buddhism, we don't tell you what to do. but please consider clearly around your decision, okay? So we do not make a judgment about when a person takes go through abortion or not. Even if you have done abortion before, you come to a Buddhist temple, we teach you ways to repent, to bring good karma to that life, bring good karma to yourselves, because we all make mistakes. We all create bad karma ourselves, consciously, willingly or unwillingly. Okay, so it's not about the judgment, it's about understanding. Next. Okay, so a group of questions on meditation. Can you help with a meditation technique to counter lack of sleep? So I'm assuming that you're asking this because you have difficulty falling asleep, right? Typically, there are a few things you can do to try to help you go to sleep. Breath counting, right? So when you're lying in bed, you can practice breath counting meditation. You just observe your breath, or if you wish, you can count the breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Or you can do silent chanting, like chanting the Buddha's name, chanting a mantra. You just chant and chant and chant. These repeated simple actions tend to calm your mind, and so that you can more easily fall asleep. It's okay to do that, to do this practice and then fall asleep, okay? Often if we have difficulty falling asleep, there's a subconscious habit of stressing over things. So for long-term solution, it's better to do various Buddhist practice to discover the source of your stress or anxiety, like meditation, which help refine your mind and observation, so that one day you may be able to discover the source of your stress. Practice letting go. Like earlier we talked about, oh, I have to live with this this person who complain all the time. Maybe just ignore it. Like the Chinese said, going 1 year, go the other year. If that person is complaining all the time, maybe you don't have other, you have to live with that person. Just ignore that person. Learn to ignore it. Don't let that stay on your mind. So practice letting go. Practice letting go of your desires. Practice letting go of your anger. Practice letting go of the anxiety. Inner calmness. Try to achieve inner calmness. So for example, 5 minutes of meditation throughout the day. Just, whenever you have 3-5 minutes, just close your eyes or not close your eyes, just breathe, just do nothing, just collect yourself, return your mind to a state where it is doing nothing. It's perfectly fine to do nothing. And then get used to that calmness of the mind, even if it's only for a few minutes at a time, okay? So later on, we'll talk more about how you use meditation to uncover, to understand yourself better. All right, next question. For a householder who has time to devote to longer and deeper meditation practice every day, what would you recommend? Well, everybody is different. So, it really takes some personal Q&A to make the best recommendation. But in general, Shifu recommends a combination of sutra recitation, Dharma study, and meditation. Meditation involves sitting, walking, and practicing mindfulness while you're doing simple tasks. For example, cleaning the floor, folding the bed sheets, doing laundry, washing dishes. Okay. If it's more complicated task that requires thinking and judging, that is a little bit harder. So start with simple tasks and practice mindfulness throughout. Okay, so there's different forms of meditation. Now, combination of sutra recitation and Dharma study. So chanting, reading the sutra frequently, because the Buddha sutras, they have profound meaning and layered meanings. The more you study, the more you read it, the more you study it, the more you may uncover. Okay, so in Buddhism, there's called the three kinds of wisdoms. The wisdom from hearing or listening to Dharma talk or reading, right? That's the wisdom from hearing, and wisdom of thinking. Once you listen to something, to a Dharma talk like today's session, you want to think on your own. And don't you say, oh, that was good. Thank you, Shifu. And then you don't ever think about it anymore. And then 3 years later, you're going to ask Shifu the same questions, right? So it is important that you jot down some of the important ideas here, even if it's just 2 or 3 ideas that you grasp, and think about it, internalize it, integrate it into your own life, into your own thinking, if it makes sense to you. If it doesn't make sense to you, try to think it through. Why doesn't it make sense to me? Maybe you can ask Shifu again next time. Okay, make sure you understand it and it makes sense to you. Shifu is confident that the things we teach here, that the things that Buddha teach, makes total sense and can benefit everybody. But you have to understand it completely yourself, right? The more you understand it, the more you can apply it. So the third part is practicing, applying in your life, applying different situations. When Shifu says, try to practice teaching to another person, that is part of the practicing. That's part of the thinking and practicing. Try to think of 3 examples to illustrate that principle. That is part of the thinking. And now you want to, after have a clear understanding, you want to apply to your real life situation. You want to apply to that roommate who is constantly complaining. You want to apply to that coworker who always contradicts you. You want to apply to that client who is unhappy with everything you provide. Oh, one more thing I want to say about that tenant letter story. The landlord who rents our houses, it's important that you start your business with the idea that I want to provide good service to my client. And that business will become a Buddhist practice. It's not that I try to get as much money, I won't make a lot of money, expanding my business. No, you start by thinking, I want to provide a good service to my clients, to my customers. So that landlord is willing to sacrifice, even though they sign a contract to sacrifice that money, the penalty money, to make that tenant leave, if she decides to leave live in harmony, live in peace and not with anger. Because you know what? One happy client will bring you 10 other clients. That's how you expand the business, by not thinking about expanding the business, by thinking about how to bring a good service, how to benefit others. And your business will expand naturally, right? So practicing, applying these Buddhist principles in real life situations, that will deepen your understanding. And there's different kinds of wisdom you achieve by hearing, by thinking, and practicing. There's wisdom you can achieve by practicing the teaching that you will not gain by just studying it. Okay? And there are wisdom you will gain, the insight you will get by thinking about it deeply, trying to internalize it, that you will not gain by just listening to Shifu's Dharma talk. That's why Shifu asks you to do the sutra reading and the Dharma study, thinking about the teaching. Okay. All right, next. What role does meditation play in the path of enlightenment? Simple. It is crucial. Because meditation is the practice of mindfulness. And mindfulness brings you clear mind. If your mind is not settled, if you're not mindful, meditation is not just about sitting still and feeling good. It is about bringing your mind to a state of stillness, and so that you can have clarity. Just like still water is clear. Clear mind is what is important. And then when you have a clear mind, you can have penetrating insight into a situation, into other people. When we talk about understanding others, the more clear and calm your mind is, the more you can pick up the signs, the cues, the clues to help you understand where they're coming from. And when you turn that penetrating insight into yourself, into what is the nature of myself? Who am I? What am I? You achieve enlightenment. Okay, so meditation in different forms. I'm not just sitting meditation is not the only form of meditation. Walking meditation, chanting can be a skillful means for meditation. So many forms of meditation, they are crucial for the Buddhist practice to enlightenment. Next, when we meditate and there are thoughts coming up, should we ignore those thoughts and let them come and go, or should we always need to remind ourselves to get our mind back to the breath counting or Buddha name chanting or investigating the heart? So the principle is focus on the subject of your meditation. Well, that should be subject of meditation. Yeah. And ignore everything else. So whatever you decide to meditate on, whether it's the breath, whether it's counting the breath, whether it's having no thoughts, just having clear mind, or any other, meditate on your body, the components of your body, okay, the satipatthana practice and so on, which we'll have a special topic on. Focus on the subject of your meditation and ignore everything else. But you don't need to constantly remind you. Just remind you occasionally, once in a while, and then be mindful of that subject, okay? Next, which meditation techniques did the Thai cave boys and their teacher use to brave darkness and lack of food for 9 days until they were discovered? I think that's big news a few years ago. When this teacher and the boys were trapped in a cave, it took several days for the rescue team to bring them out. And amazingly, they all survived because they meditated. I do not have the specific method that they meditate, but any kind of Buddhist meditation, they bring calmness and clarity of mind. And when your mind is clear and not wondering and stressing and thinking about left and right and worrying about yourself, all of that takes a lot of energy. So when your mind is calm and clear, you don't worry about when you get rescued. You just try to stay put. That requires a lot less energy consumption, and that's most likely what helped them to survive. Okay. How do we know we are making progress in our meditation practice? We need to move a little bit faster. Here are some of the questions that you can use to examine whether you're making progress in your meditation practice. How long can you maintain mindfulness? You do need to reflect on your meditation session. How long was I able to stay mindful? If you meditated for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, after that 30 minutes is finished, do you know? Do you even know how long were you able to remain mindful? Was it 50%, 30%, or you don't even know, right? You need to reflect. You need to give yourself feedback on how well you did on that meditation session. How clearly do you remember your mental states during that session? How well can you deal with difficult situations? Now, this goes back to when Shifu said, your meditation is to have a clear mind. Clear mind is to have deeper insight. Deeper insight is the wisdom to learn to deal with life. So how well can you deal with difficult situations? Is your mind more calm and clear when you're dealing with the same situations compared to 5 years ago? Do you have less stress in your life and more wisdom? These are some of the things you can examine yourself. Next question. Mantras. Which mantras should we chant on a daily basis to benefit our sentient being? Basically, all Buddha sutras, all mantras can be used. You have your pick. At the end of your chanting session, let's say you set aside 15 minutes or 30 minutes to chant a scripture or to chant a mantra. At the end of your practice, make a dedication. May the merits of this practice be transferred to all sentient beings. That dedication is also part of the benefiting sentient beings. So you can chant the Heart Sutra, for example. You can chant the Diamond Sutra, Sutra of 42 chapters, Sutra on Impermanence, Sutra of 8 Realization. These are all scriptures that we have translated at Zhongtai. Shifu led the translation committee to translate these. You can. It's been published as a book in English translations. Have been collected in the book. You can obtain those from Zhongtai Zen centers. Okay, they are also on the Zhongtai websites online. Okay. In terms of mantra, you can probably the shortest mantra is Guan Yin's Om Mani Padme Hum. I think many people already know that Om Mani Padme Hum. A longer one would be Great Compassion Mantra, also given by Guan Yin or Avalokiteshvara. There's the Medicine Buddha's mantra. There's hundreds of mantras. Okay, when you're chanting the sutra or the mantra, the important thing is to maintain a present mind. Your mind is in the present moment. You try to be mindful of every single word and syllable. If you make a mistake, don't worry about it. Just move on. All right, and you complete it. All right, it's a mindfulness practice. At the end, you make a dedication. All right, next question. Please help me understand the meaning of the 4-line words of the sutra. Since we're running out of time, let me skip this one, but I will say that I will teach Dharma Sutra. It's a very, very important sutra, and it will be beneficial to all those who want to deeply understand the Dharma. So I will teach that sutra sometime. If not starting this year, maybe we'll start next year. Okay, the Dharma Sutra. Even if you attended we started to teach the sutra in English before, but we never finished it. And in the last 3 years, we have much deeper insight into the profound wisdom of the Dharma Sutra. So I would really like to teach it. Next question, independence and causality. Oh, go back a little bit more. The last one, how to keep practicing Buddhism without going to classes. Those of you who are part of the Zhongtai community in the past 2.5 years, you did not have a chance to take classes. Practice the 3 wisdoms that Shifu just explained before. But now, it's one of the reasons that I need to come out is to start teaching again, to give people the chance to learn the profound wisdom. So now we can better practice the 3 wisdoms. Next, interdependence and causality. How can I realize the causes and conditions of some or all sense events, sound, touch, feeling, intention with certainty? Well, only the Buddha can know all the conditions. So we do not know all the possible cause conditions. For example, so say try to understand the other person, but there's no way you can understand. Well, At this present moment, we have no, it's impossible for us right now to understand all the cause conditions that make that person who he is, or to completely understand the situation, right? But that's okay, because we focus on the principles, we focus on the karma principles, we focus on the principles of compassion, which is acceptance, understanding, empathy. So you practice that, even though you do not have all the facts, you can still do very well, right? So karma principles like 5 precepts, the 3 poisons of greed, anger, ignorance, and so on, which Shifu have taught before. All right, next part. Sometimes I feel that finding the exact cause and conditions for phenomena is hard. What's always hard? It's always about, like I explained, you don't need to find complete exact cause and conditions. Finding primary and approximate cause and condition is good enough in most cases for guidance on how to proceed, how to react. Okay. Or practice letting go, being mindful of the present moment. You can, there's another way, is to just practice letting go. Whatever the other person says, the ill will coming from that person, just let it go. I just go on and do what I think is important. All right. Regarding the 8th consciousness, well, we don't have time to talk about this. It's a big topic. We'll talk about it later. Next part. I think some very enlightened people in the world don't know all the nuances of cause conditions, even if they dissolve the duality of subject and object. Knowing the conventional truth with certainty somehow seems to be even harder than the absolute truth. Okay, let's look at the answer. We don't have time to talk about this because this is the last question I want to get to. So the absolute truth and the conventional truth, the 2 truth system, is very important. Conventional truth is about karma, causality, the consequences in this world. Absolute truth is about empty nature of all things. So Shifu will have probably a series of talks on understanding emptiness, right? And karma, you already have some basic understanding, so we'll touch on that later too. Okay, next part. Emptiness. Let's skip this for now. Okay, questions about death. How do you sincerely honor the life of someone who has passed on to be able to serve them best in their next form? And how do we feel the vacuum of their absence in our hearts? So that's a very practical question, because we will all face death of our friends and relatives. The important thing is that while living, cherish and be grateful for each moment that you have together. So let us take a moment to think about the person around you, the person you know, person important in your lives. Have I cherished them? Have I been grateful for their presence? Do I feel blessed that they are well? Or even if they are not completely well, am I grateful that they are not worse? So cherish the people that you have in your life now, because you can't hold on to them. They will be gone. Okay, now once the person has passed on, we can dedicate marriage to them. So for example, let's say your grandfather had passed away. All your meditation, all your good deeds, all your offerings, all your sutra study, these are merits. You can, at the end of the day, you can dedicate these merits to them, and that will actually benefit them, bring them into connection with the karma of the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Okay, and help them in their next life to have a better chance of encountering the Dharma to achieve enlightenment. And aim for enlightenment yourself. Because when you are enlightened, you have a true understanding of life and death. Is a topic we do not have the time to discuss today. What is the real meaning of life and death? But when you are awakened, you will have a true understanding of life and death, and you will see life and death in a different way. So how do we feel the vacuum of their absence? Well, they never actually go away. We never actually go away. So lifetime after lifetime will likely encounter each other, if not in every single life, but in many lives. So what is important is that we achieve enlightenment ourselves so we can guide them in the future when we do encounter them. So they never go away. Do not think that they are completely gone. Even though there's not a soul that gets reincarnated. So that's would be the next question. How do we safeguard what we learn and practice in this lifetime and carry on to our future lives? Well, one important practice in Buddhism is making the vows. So you all know the 4 great vows, right? Countless are sentient beings I vow to liberate. Endless afflictions I vow to eradicate. Measureless are the dharmas I vow to master. Supreme is the Buddha way I vow to attain. These are not just things that we chant mindlessly. These are vows. These are like setting a goal. But it's not just a goal for this life. It's a goal for our future lives. It's like a person setting a goal. I want to get a college degree. I want to get a PhD. When you set that goal and you are insistent on it, you make effort toward it, you will get your degree. So making a vow is, in conventional term, setting your mind on setting a goal in your life, basically. So when you are sincere in your 4 great vows, yes, I do want to liberate sentient beings, I do want to achieve Buddhahood, then you are shaping your future. Shifu is very serious about this. You are already shaping your future lives. Every life you will encounter the 3 jewels. You will continue on your practice. And remember, no cultivation effort is wasted. When you don't cultivate, of course, you don't have the consequences. When you practice, even 5 minutes a day, you will reap that consequence of that practice, that karma. When you practice 3 hours a day, of course, the karma, the consequence will be different. No cultivation is wasted. Repeated mindful practice, internalization of that Buddhist teaching in your consciousness, that you may carry into the next life, even if you don't remember it. Some kids are born vegetarians. Some kids are born compassionate. Some kids are born not vengeful. These are all signs of Buddhist practice in the past. Okay, so if it's strong enough in this life, you may carry it into your next life. Even if it's not strong enough, you will continue in the next life, and you may become one strong enough in the next life. Okay, next. I find breath counting to be helpful, but when this body dies, there's no breath. What then? Well, breath counting is a meditation method that is a door to awakening. Awakening requires insight into non-self or emptiness of the ego. So that is a crucial part of Buddhist practice. It's what we call enlightenment, awakening. Yeah. So breath counting is not an end to itself. You practice breath counting so that you have a clear mind. When you have a clear mind, you have deeper insight. When you turn that deeper insight into understanding your own nature, you may achieve awakening. We talked about that sequence a few minutes ago. So when you understand the non-self or empty nature of the ego self, you know what it means to transcend life and death. In Buddhism, we have no soul like in other religions. So what exactly is reincarnated to the next life when one dies? The 8th consciousness, That is a big topic. Shifu will require 1 or maybe 2 or 3 special lectures to explain this. So I will just give you some very brief pointers from the Wei Shi or consciousness only school. Yes, the 8th consciousness is what carries the seeds of the karma. The seeds are not permanent, they are impermanent, but they continue to carry the karma fruition into the next life. From the Prajnaparamita school or the Madhyamaka school of Buddhism, the explanation is somewhat different. They are not incompatible, just different system of explanation. So what goes on to the next life is the continuation of each thought. Continuation of each thought. So your thought, your conscious mind never ends, it just continues. So when you die, your physical body may go away, your mind doesn't end, it just continues. If you're unenlightened, it's the consciousness that continues and carries the karma moment by moment. When you are awakened, when you're enlightened, you understand what this process is about. So we will need to explain that better. The thing you take away from this is that there is no permanent, substantial, independent self that goes from one life to another. That is what it is different from Hinduism or other teachings. Okay? If there's no self who gets enlightened, well, we need to have a special topic on that. And the question about if there's no attachment to the self, how do we have attachment to the phenomena? That involves this concept of attachment to the self and attachment to dharmas. We don't have time to explain this. Next. Let's skip this. We don't have time for this. But wait, the question really is about when you achieve the 4 fruits of the Shravaka path, you become an arhat, you achieve nirvana. Along the path, can you decide to go on the Bodhisattva path and aim for Buddhahood? Yes, you can. You can do that. That is given in the Mahayana sutras, like the Lotus Sutra. The 2 paths are not mutually exclusive, as some people may think. Next. Okay, I do want to get through this. I think it's an important question because it clears some misunderstanding about Buddhist practice and happiness and meditation. So I realize it's 1.5 hours already. So allow me to take another maybe 10-15 minutes. Okay. So the question is long and it's several paragraphs. So let's look at them. The Buddhist principles are easy to understand intellectually. Well, good for you. Yeah, I don't think so. Some of it is easy, but some of it is actually pretty profound. Okay, there are layers of meaning to be understood. But Buddhism is about happiness, and happiness is not an intellectual experience. Let's just look at the purple parts. Happiness is an emotion, feeling. Pain means something dangerous. So, our body works like, we avoid pain because it feels bad because it's necessary for survival. Okay. So, Shifu's reply to this is that what you're talking about is worldly happiness. And worldly happiness is physical and emotional. There's a physical part of pleasure or comfort. There's an emotional aspect to it. But these are what we call worldly happiness. The nature of worldly happiness is that it is never satisfying. You can never get enough. And they don't last. They change when conditions change. So in Buddhism, those are not the kind of happiness we aim for. It's not real happiness. Real happiness transcends this worldly pleasure or comfort or contentment. Okay. So yeah, it is true. Physical suffering is important for our survival. We have pain, and that's very difficult to deal with. There's mental suffering also we need to understand. The mental suffering is due to our thoughts, views, habitual thinking. Let's move this up a little bit. Scroll up the text a little bit. Thank you. So there's the physical suffering aspect. We'll talk about it a couple of minutes later. But there's the mental suffering aspect. Yeah. So when Shifu gave the example of the arrow, somebody shoot an arrow in you, that hurts. Well, this is a physical aspect of it. But I pull out the arrow and poke myself 99 times. That's actually mental. We actually don't poke the arrow, but we think about it, when we get upset, we get angry, we are frustrated. These are all mental suffering because of lack of right understanding or right view. We inflict this mental suffering onto ourselves, and that is delusion. That's what Buddha can help with. When we have the right understanding, we can avoid 99% or eventually 100% of that mental suffering. And often that mental suffering is greater than the physical suffering. Okay, so next. Buddha discovered this and then transcended suffering by not being attached. That is paradoxical. According to Buddha, the suffering exists, and by accepting it, we no longer suffer. Isn't that contradictory? Well, it is contradictory if you think of suffering as, physical pain. But it's more than that, right? In the gift example, when somebody shout at you, try to destroy your reputation, and blame you for things you haven't done, do you suffer? You don't have to, because it's a choice you can make. I do not choose to accept that gift, and I don't suffer. Buddha does not suffer. So that is what is meant by non-attachment. I don't get attached to your words. And when you try to destroy somebody's reputation falsely, the karma goes back to you. It doesn't affect me if I choose not to pay attention to it. That suffering I can transcend. It is no contradiction here. It's perfectly logical. Okay? Something about our delusions and causes suffering. So we need to change our delusions. How is that possible? I will just explain with the gift story and other examples. For example, are we deluded by what feels cold? Is changing that even practical? So now you're talking about physical suffering. Is it possible to change physical suffering by non-attachment? Actually, yes. It's actually harder than changing mental suffering. So physical experiences, like cold, extreme cold, pain, it is actually possible to change that experience by advanced meditation. With advanced meditation, your sensory perception changes. You can actually transcend this worldly sensations. The experience we have now are in the realm of desire. When you achieve advanced meditation on the level of the realm of form or the realm of formlessness, you don't experience that pain or cold. That's why some advanced meditators can go on for days or even months without food or water. They actually change the physical need and sensations. But that is difficult. That takes a lot of practice. So yes, it is actually possible to change. And we do feel a lot of pain because since beginningless time, we have had great attachment to our physical body. Okay? So the more we are attached to our body, the more suffering we experience. When you are sick and there's physical discomfort, the more you are concerned with your body, the more you worry about your body, the more the pain becomes. When you are less concerned with your body, when you are able to divert your attention to something else, you actually experience less suffering. Of course, you still need to seek medical attention, whether it's Chinese medicine, Western medicine, Indian medicine, whatever. You do need to seek medical attention, but the mental aspect plays a crucial role as well. Okay, so mental experiences like and dislike. When somebody says bad things about you, is it a real experience? No, it's not a real experience. Whether you suffer from it or not, whether you're angry or not, it depends on your own view, not the other person. I may not be able to change how the other person feels about me. I can change how I feel about you, how I react to you. If I totally ignore you, I don't suffer at all. If I think your words or criticism are beneficial to me, I'm actually happy for your criticism, right? So delusion is a misperception of reality. I didn't think I have a choice. If you say bad things about me, then I suffer. No, that is a delusion because you do have a choice. Remember the gift story. So this is part of what we call the empty nature of mental and physical experiences. They are not set in stone the way you react to them or the way you feel them, the way you experience them. These experiences are not set. It is in a large part dependent on how you look at it and whether you have meditation skill or not. So it is possible to transcend this duality, good and bad, pleasure and displeasure, suffering or no suffering, suffering or peace. Okay, let's move up. Ultimately, even death is an illusion. When you awaken to the true nature of yourself, you will see that even death is an illusion. So anything physical is ultimately an illusion too. Illusion doesn't mean you're imagining things. You are feeling this pain, but it is possible to actually transcend that. Okay, last part, we can meditate for many years, but there could be diminishing returns, no real change for when life is difficult. That may be because since suffering serves a purpose. Yes, suffering does serve a purpose. Remember the Four Noble Truths. It is because suffering that Buddha came to practice and achieve complete enlightenment. So suffering can be good for us. When you look at things this way, you already begin to change the nature of that suffering. But suffering is not necessary. It serves a purpose until you have learned the lesson, then it is not necessary anymore. We don't have to suffer forever. So meditation doesn't help you in difficult situations. That's because you separate meditation from the insight. Remember, in the level 1 class that we taught, meditation involves 2 parts: concentration and contemplation. Concentration is part of basic training of meditation, leads to stillness of the mind. Contemplation of vipassana, leading to insight into reality. The reason we don't deal with difficult situations, well, it's because we lack that insight. So a person can meditate for 20 years without real insight. That's because they focus on the stillness, the concentration, not the insight. But the insight is a crucial part of Buddhist meditation. So the purpose of Buddhist meditation is not just to feel good mentally and physically. It is to still the mind and refine the mind so that you have the clarity and insight to alleviate our suffering by destroying our delusions. Okay, let's move up. Furthermore, when some part of our mind chooses to suffer, we choose to suffer. Exactly. So why do you choose to suffer? You don't have to choose to suffer. But most people choose to suffer without knowing that. Okay? We can choose not to suffer, but you need to have the insight, the wisdom to see how you make that choice. By destroying false views and replace with right view. That's Four Noble Truths, level 1 Zen class. The level 1 and level 2 Zen classes that we have taught before are really profound. So it's worth your while to go back to the teaching over and over and over again, as Shifu will do. Shifu will expound on these basic principles because most people do not fully comprehend how important and useful they are the first 5 times, 10 times they hear it. So I will continue to do that. With that, let's let us finish the question and answer session. I do not have time to go over the questions you have posted on Dory now. We'll collect them, and then in the future time, we'll have another Q&A session. All right, let's then complete the session with our dedications. But let's also say that Shifu is glad that we have people from different places in this session. Most of you are from America, from the US, but there are also someone from Finland, someone from Europe, and someone from Asia, and someone from perhaps even Middle East. We'll see. So that shows that Buddhism transcends national boundaries. Okay, so let's make the dedication. Put our palms together. Clear my throat to sing this. Okay. May the merits of our deeds reach every part of the world. Sentient beings large and small, all attend enlightenment. May all have health and all achieve your goals in accordance with the Dharma. We'll see you next time online.
Thank you, Shifu.
We are grateful for Jianhu Shifu's enlightening Dharma talk. Please fill in the feedback survey that will be provided to help us do better next time. Wishing you all the best. See you next time. Amitofo.
阿弥陀佛，
阿弥陀佛。
阿弥陀佛，师父。